It's so wonderful to see all your faces here. I'm, I'm filled with, excuse me, a few tears about this. And I'm very grateful that you made this time to listen to this talk. I want to acknowledge some of the people who've come this morning. And those are people from my Sangha in Rapid City who have supported my practice for a number of years. And that would be, first of all, Hakaju. Where are you, Hakaju? There he is. Hakaju, who's drugged me down to more sessions than I can ever count, sometimes kicking and screaming on the way, but we've solved the world's problems as we drove there. And I'd like to acknowledge Jan Ernst, who's part of our Sangha in Rapid City. She and I have cleaned up those roadways for years, doing garbage pickup during Samu, and Christine Fuan Jones, who supported this practice for a very long time, and Zara, my ocean, who's part of our Rapid City Sangha, and of course my dear beloved friend Beth, who has come, and my friend Anne. I hope that you all have a friend like Anne. And I have to say John Murphy too, who's sitting in his car between basketball games and carved out time to come. I wanted to say something about Anne. Anne's one of those people that when you ask her to do something, she doesn't ask you why, she just does it. And she's been showing up for me for 60 years. We first met as freshmen in high school in a girls' boarding school. We got in lots and lots of trouble there. And that was a bonding experience. And so some of this is going to be strange to you, Anne, because you haven't done this before, but such a welcome to you. And of course, to the beloved Roshis, who have created such an incredible place to practice at Great Mountain. And to all of those of you who have come before me, who have given these talks, who have put your hearts out there, who have shown me how to do this, who have shown me how to speak from the heart, through the koans that you've given and the example that you've been, to all those people, Eddie Lee and David and all the people, Echo, Joanna, all those people, and Lucero who come to Great Mountain. And Kim, you're new to me, but so glad to have you as part of this. So I'm going to get this frog out of my throat and get on with the koan. And I say this for Anne's benefit, because koans that's a word she doesn't know. And I think most of you are familiar with koans. It is a public talk between a student and a teacher that helps to deepen the practice. And so as I go through this, I'm going to be modeling some of the things that I learned from you, because I've watched you give koans, Anahai, of course, Hakaju, many of you have given koans, Echo, before me. And I've watched these over the years, many years I've watched these koans and tried to incorporate in this talk the best of what you've distributed or demonstrated to me. So I've done enough introductory remarks, and welcome to Stephanie. You're new to me, Lucero, it's so great to see you. And let me get on with this. The case that I'm going to talk about today, and I love this koan, excuse me, is Joshu's Wash Your Bowls. And I bet you've heard talks about this koan because it's such a famous one. It's such a great one. Once a monk made a request of Joshu. He said, I've just entered the monastery. Please, master, give me instructions. And Joshu said, have you had your rice gruel? Yes, I have, said the monk. Then said Joshu, wash your bowls. The monk had an insight. So I'm going to say that again because it's pithy. There's a lot to it and it's simple. Once a monk made a request of Joshu. I have just entered the monastery, he said. Please give me instructions, master. And Joshu said, have you eaten your rice gruel? The monk replied, yes, I have. Then said Joshu, wash your bowls. So here's my understanding of the koan, and there's all kinds of ways you can come at it. But here's what I understand about it. A monk comes to Joshu and with all sincerity is asked to be given instructions. What did he really want from instructions, and what did he hope to get? I came to Great Mountain Zen Center in 2005, not at all as sure as this monk was about what I wanted from instruction or what I hoped to get. I had started sitting with Hakuju in Rapid City and a woman who had a meditation group in her home. And she said about herself, I am one of the most dedicated and committed Zen students you will ever see. That bold statement didn't come from a place of ego, but it came from what appeared to me to be a deep calling and dedication to the practice. I was intrigued by her statement, and I saw the intensity and dedication she brought to the cushion. And I was curious about how meditation could affect my life. I was in my early 50s and contemplating retiring from the school system in a few years. I was also angry, uptight, restless, and discontent with my job, my life, and just about everything. I had left a very long and committed relationship with a Lutheran church. I was a very active part in that Lutheran church. And I came to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore and I left. And combining that with the prospect of retiring in a couple years, that leaving the church left a big void in my life because I'd spent a lot of time there. And the idea of retiring from the school system, feeling as irritated with life as I did, made me know that I had to do something to calm that down. And so I turned to meditation to see what it might offer me. I began sitting in the Rapid City Sangha, as I said, with Hakuju. We faced the wall, and it all seemed so weird and exotic to me with the bells and bowing and chanting. I didn't know what we were chanting. The words were all foreign to me. And what's more, we were bowing down to something that I totally didn't understand. And above all, I wondered how this enforced silence would bring peace to a very chaotic mind. The woman who had the meditation group, and she's a woman that Anahai knows, it was Francine Campone. And she captivated me, she intrigued me. She had such an intense focus and such commitment to her practice. And she was kind. I was attracted to that. I sat with this group for 2 years until Francine moved to Denver to be closer to her teacher, Dana Henry. Our meditation group continued without a leader until 2022. Hakuju encouraged me to come to the Great Heart Retreat at the Great Mountain Zen Center in 2005, and that's where I met the Roshis. At one point during a discussion, and yes, we were talking at that event, in the context of talking about anger, I erupted in a very passionate statement saying, I hate my brother-in-law. He's a total asshole. And it was true. I really did have a strong antipathy for him. Roshi made a comment. I remember this clearly. Who are you without all those opinions you carry, like hating your brother-in-law? I was nonplussed. What did he mean? Who am I? I had worked a lifetime on these carefully honed and crafted opinions. I had loads of examples to justify my thinking. Roshi's illusion was that I had some value or meaning beyond all that I thought or the opinions I carried. And that was the beginning of the co-op, Who Am I? I've talked about the direction my life took when at 23, my mother was killed in a car accident. So I'm not going to rehash that, except to say that when she died, I was left in a completely groundless situation. The bottom had fallen out of my life completely. And what I learned in my 23 years with my mother was that the most important thing was to be self-sufficient and not rely on anyone or anything outside myself. In other words, no one was going to save me. And the other thing I got from her was the value of education. I was a high school English teacher when she died, and I took this sort of unconscious message of depend only on yourself to mean that one way I could be safe in the world was getting more degrees and to keep going to school. If I could insulate myself with enough education and enough degrees, maybe I could find a place of safety. So I did that, getting 2 masters by the time I was 27 and enrolling in a doctoral program at age 28. By the time I was 32, I had a doctorate, and I felt more unsafe in the world than ever. I felt like a charlatan, a complete phony. All this knowledge I had gained didn't make me happy or safe. So what does that have to do with Joshu's Wash Your Bowls admonition? These ideas about emotional safety were the core of my beliefs, taken to a very extreme degree. When I graduated with a doctorate in counseling, of all things, I felt the huge sense of my not enoughness, my inadequacies. I didn't feel worthy in the least to carry the title of doctor. I asked my friends not to even mention to anyone that I had achieved this degree. More scraps of my life in my bowl. What I didn't know is that when you get a doctorate, you aren't supposed to know everything. It's just a doorway to learn more. No one said that in graduate school. Joshu's direction to the monk, wash your bowl, is his direction to get over myself, to wash all that I had thought and done away, to not hang on to it. It's that idea of not clinging to things. They're just empty. All of this was completely inconceivable to me at 32. It felt like I was clinging to a thread of my own sanity at this time. As I started my meditation practice, I went to a lot of meditation retreats and workshops that first at the Shambhala Center at Red Feather Lakes and then to Great Mountain Zen Center. I was intrigued by all the trappings of Zen, the bowing, the robes, the ritual, the chanting, the walking meditation, the Japanese influence. I was captivated by the external. When Roshi asked me who I was beyond all my self-concepts, I had no idea. I defined myself as a woman, a feminist, a school counselor, a fiercely loyal friend, a political activist, a wife, a reader, a supporter of women, and on and on. Let go of all this? Never. Who was I when my bowl had been washed clean of all that? I've been coming to the Great Mountain Zen Center for 20 years. And in that time, I've seen the Zen Center move from Lafayette to Berthoud. I've seen people who I thought would practice Zen to the very end of their lives leave. I've seen lots of new people come and go, and I've been an observer of change, my own and the outer changes here. I've learned that nothing is permanent including the Zen Center, and that things are always in constant flux. When the monk asked Joshu in all earnestness, "I beg you, master, give me instructions," I have to ask myself, why am I here? I think we all have to ask ourselves that. Why do we put forth this effort? From whence does my earnestness spring? It's a question we all have to ask. What about the practice keeps me coming back? It's a big effort for me to drive 350 miles and sometimes awful roads and cold weather to go to the Zen Center and to sit with you, to follow a schedule not of my own making. And maybe the hardest thing is to look inside and wash my bowl. Let go of the fictions of my life. And they are fictions, believe me. Joshi said this is a lifelong practice. And I know that my bowl will never be clean and that I have to wash it every day. I'm not especially crazy about that idea, but I believe it. My Cocker Spaniel, Sophie, who's right behind me on the bed here, is a great teacher about cleaning your bowl. She is meticulous about her bowl. She licks it clean and goes back to it several times a day just to make sure it is clean. Like the metaphor of the steam on the mirror, I'm wiping away the steam of my delusions. New delusions rise endlessly. When Joshu told the monk to wash his bowls, the koan says the student attained some realization. Not all, but some. The practice has brought me face to face with my own true nature, my own sense of being enough just as I am. At the core of who I am enough. I have enough. And we as a collective, as a Sangha, and as a humanity are enough to solve our world's problems. Through my meditation practice, I keep washing my bowl as I reflect on my triggers, my character defects, and where I can let go. It does occur to me that as a humanity, if we really had the belief that we are all individually enough and that we have enough, our world would be such a much better place. We wouldn't have the grasping and clinging and the disease of more. We wouldn't be killing each other for more. Our bowls contain the detritus of our lives, the endless opportunities to wake up, to see things differently, and not to get caught on the various hooks that life presents. The bowl is a container that holds it all. It may be a symbol of enlightenment, that ever elusive quality that once we think we have it, like that, it's gone. It's a reminder that nothing, even clean bowls, is permanent, and washing them is endless until, well, who knows what that until is. Joshu told the monk to wash his bowls. He didn't gush forth with Zen philosophy or gushy platitudes. He simply said, "Have you had your breakfast?" When the monk answered in the affirmative, Joshu said in essence, "Then go do the next right thing. Wash your bowls." It's that simple, and the monk got it. What he is looking for is right there in the action of washing the bowl. It is there in that action of zazen. It is there in the in-breath and the out-breath, because it is so close. Few of us see it. I'll say, I'm a classic example with these koans that I've been working on, to see what's right there. Apart from being here now, what other action can there be? Just washing the bowl. I'd like to close with one of my favorite stories, the parable of Mushin. And I'm sure many of you know this. I love this story. It was written by Joko Beck in her book, Everyday Zen. I think it says a lot about what this practice is. A man named Joe was working in a factory. We could substitute a person named Suzan or Seijo was working in a factory because I am this person. A man named Joe was working in a factory. He was angry, excuse me. He was angry and irascible and hard to get along with. Thought it wouldn't have been me. One day, after creating a great deal of havoc at work, his boss said, "Joe, I've had it with you. You're fired." Joe went home to his wife, who said, "Joe, I've had it with you. I'm divorcing you. I'm leaving you." So Joe sat in his house for many weeks, wondering what he would do. He went to the bookstore and he bought a book called How to Catch the Train of Enlightenment. It is said that the train of enlightenment was coming, or the book said this, that the train of enlightenment was coming and that he had to be ready to catch it. So Joe, who then had changed his name to Mushin, went to the train station and waited for the train of enlightenment. He waited and waited. Pretty soon the train came speeding by. It didn't stop. Mushin waited and waited. It came racing by the next day and the next, and he could hear it whooshing by, but it didn't stop. Weeks went by and the train kept whooshing by without stopping. Mushin started reading his book about meditation, and he started sitting right there on the station platform. Pretty soon others joined him, and they too were meditating and waiting for the train of enlightenment that kept passing them by. Pretty soon Mushin noticed that these people sitting there had kids who were not being cared for. So he got some food and fed the children. It turns out that there were other people at other train stations waiting for the train, and their children weren't being fed or educated. So Mushin organized people and started a kitchen where people and their children could eat. He organized areas where the children could play and learn. He got teachers and workers to help feed this ever-growing crowd of people waiting for enlightenment. Pretty soon, Mushin started sitting 4 and 5 days at a time, doing zazen, and the crowd joined him. For Mushin, there was nothing but just sitting. He began to enjoy the feeling of the cool night air on his skin. He sat and sat through the days and night. He realized that from the very beginning, he had been on the train. Nothing to realize, nowhere to go, just the wholeness of life and an old man sitting the night away. I think I relate to that old man. The next morning, Mushin got up from his cushion and went to fix coffee. The next time we see him, he's in his carpentry shop building a swing set for the playground. And that's the story of Mushin. What did he find? Well, that's up to you to decide. You as a Sangha who come to support the practice have been such a source of inspiration, and seeing you just continuing to sit has inspired and supported me in doing that. It is quite amazing the transformation that can come by us all sitting together, not speaking, going about our meditative lives. From this experience, compassion arises unbidden, and like a blanket, it enfolds us. I can say that many of you I don't know the stories of your lives, but I love you anyway. And I couldn't love you until I could love myself. I couldn't love myself with all that garbage in my bowl, my opinions, my hurt feelings, my sadness, my joy, and all the rest of it. That's one of the gifts of a clean bowl. And that's the story of Mushin. All the questions about enlightenment and how to get it have evaporated, and it's just washing the bowl. Or as Joshi says, it's just sitting, and we just keep doing that. As I enter into this last chapter of my life, I enter it with a calm and happy heart. I take heart from the monk's sincerity to seek a deeper understanding of himself, to ask for guidance in his life, and to accept that what is here is just this life as it is, this food that sustains us, and some good people who support us. The injunction to wash your bowls asks us not to be too caught up in the size of the bowl, the color of the bowl, the shape, but like my Sophie does, check it often just to be sure that I take care of the scraps that have accumulated every day. When I was in high school with Anne, we went 2 years to a girls' boarding school. At night, as we lay in our beds, and you remember this, Anne, before we went to sleep, we were asked to examine our conscience and to see where we had sinned in thought, word, and deed. I don't think examining my conscience is a bad thing. Reviewing the happenings of the day is quite helpful as long as I don't get caught up in the routine of making myself bad or sinful. I don't adhere to the concept of sin, but I do adhere to the concept of error. And as a human, I make lots of errors. And reviewing the day brings to mind the ways I could have done things differently, and the way I like that I did some of the things I did. It's another version of Joshu's washing the bowls. As I reflect on this last chapter of my life, my very ordinary life, I'm reminded of the 5 remembrances which we used to read in our Sangha. And they are, I am of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. I'm of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. As I conclude my thoughts about Joshu and the bowl, I feel a relief that these words have gone out. I've been practicing this talk for 20 years. I've been building on it by what you've said and the things that I've heard in my own life experiences. And I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share these words with you. And about cleaning my bowl, I have to keep doing that. And I am grateful. I am so grateful. I don't have to do it alone. I have a Sangha and you, people who love me and care about me and have stood with me and sat with me over many years, who support me. And as I think of this last chapter of my life, and for many of yours, we don't know how this is going to end, but I do think about the analogy that we're all just walking each other home. We're bearing witness to the things that happen in our lives, the losses, the celebrations, the happiness, to the sitting, to the talks that we hear, to the life that we share. And for that, I am very grateful. So thank you. I have completed my, I am complete. And if there are questions or comments, I will like to open this up to the group. Thank you.